So thank you all again for joining us today as a new user walkthrough, an administrative walkthrough of the NHA website. We are recording and we will be sending that recording out to everybody who is with us today and who registered for our webinar. And so just as a kind of level set, here at NHA, we are fully invested in the success for both you and your learners. We take a lot of pride in doing what is right, and we're not afraid to use our voice if it moves the industry forward. We're here to help ensure that all of your learners, no matter their background or needs, feel confident and empowered to complete their required learning or earn their accredited certification. During today's session, we're going to review NHA and the resources we provide. We'll walk you through your access to the website and how you can be fully enabled to run any program you have right from there. We'll even do a live walkthrough before getting into that open Q&A at the end. Now, remember, if you stick around all the way to the Q&A, there'll be some opportunities for you to fill out a couple of surveys and be put into some raffles. So definitely stick around with us all the way to the end. We're going to get into a brief introduction of NHA, but before we talk about us, I wanted to take just a quick minute and find out a little bit more about you. So I am going to open up a poll here. So if you would please identify or select the option that is the most closely aligned to your role with your institution. So go ahead and read through these lists here and go ahead and select the one that you think most directly aligns with where you're coming from and with us today. I know there's a couple things to look at, so take a minute, read through them all. If you have other, go ahead and post that in the chat box if you like, and we're just going to see who's with us today. All right, it looks like we've got a lot of program directors, some other administrators, classroom educators, all with us. It's great. All right, excellent. I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. Thank you guys for that. It just gives us a little bit of background as far as kind of what your role is and what you might need most from our platform. So now that we've seen a little bit about you, we want to make sure that you understand kind of where NHA is in the industry. So NHA is the largest frontline healthcare worker certification organization in the industry. We have over 1 million certified candidates. We celebrated real big when that happened. We are leading the industry and use those resources and information from those experiences, as well as learning partners, to create educational materials that widen skills and abilities within the health field. These have shown to help candidates have a higher potential to earn their nationally accredited certification as well. And those resources do come in many formats, starting with our nationally accredited certifications. These are broken into two main sections. So 5 of our 8 nationally accredited certifications are within the more practitioner side of frontline healthcare. These include medical assistant, phlebotomist, pharmacy technician, EKG, and patient care technician. There are also 3 optional certifications in an administrative capacity. These include billing and coding, administrative assistant, and e-health records. In addition, NHA develops comprehensive learning tools around key objectives for the healthcare professions that we serve. These resources range from didactic learning in medical terminology to anatomy and physiology, the development of soft skills, as well as clinical skills for medical assistants, administrative assistants, and pharmacy technicians. These can be used across the entire learner's journey and can be packaged together or used independently, but they can provide a comprehensive experience from start to finish. Now that you've heard just a little bit about NHA, we're going to talk about those resources in a bit more in depth, but I do want to ask one more question of everybody here. So I'm going to post another poll. We're really wondering, what you're hoping most to take away from today. And this way, when we go into our live walkthrough, we can be sure to focus on those items you're most interested in. So read through these. These are just some options of our kind of most frequently asked questions. If you read through them here and select the one or options, the one that's the most valuable to you, and we'll make sure that we can cover as much of it as we can. All right, so take some time. If there's an other, you can go ahead and post that in the chat box as well. I got almost everybody. Anybody else want to join in? Perfect. Okay, I'm going to end that up. So it looks like primarily a lot of you are just brand new and need to know everything. Okay, well, that's great. We appreciate that. We're going to try to cover as much as we can, though we can always schedule one-on-one or additional sessions based off of where you're coming from. So to get started, you should have already received a confirmation email from nhanow.com with a prompt to set up your administrative login and password. If you haven't yet seen this, check in your spam box or junk mail. This email will walk you through the first steps to get your login set up, which you can access from there through nhanow.com. Once you are logged in, you have access to almost everything you could need to manage your learners and account from this home screen. This is your dashboard. It is broken into two main categories. The center of the screen will provide you quick access to all of NHA's supplemental and complementary resources and walkthroughs. The first link here under Get Started, this is actually going to take you to all of the test plans for those 8 nationally accredited exams. So they're all available to download right from here. This is an important area for you to know what NHA's exams cover and to provide this information to your candidates. Now, we know that this is important for you both. I actually wanted to call out a survey that we completed recently from over 6,000 candidates across the country, where we uncovered some of the common themes for what the biggest hurdles were for them to take their NHA exam. Okay, we're going to open up another poll here real quick. I know it's a lot of polls right in the beginning, but just curious, of those listed, what do you think was the most common issue reported or concern from potential candidates? So read through this. It's just a list from the screen. What do you think was the most common concern for candidates to sit for their exam? Go ahead and take a minute. I love these polls. They're so much fun in real time to see kind of what people are thinking. All right. Almost everybody's answered. Perfect. So it looks like you guys are kind of all over the board. Everybody, there's these are concerns. I mean, I don't want to pretend like they're not, but for those of you who answered test anxiety or low confidence to pass, good job. We know this can be addressed through preparation. Now, all of these were concerns from individuals, but test anxiety just really rose to the top of the pack. This is one of the many reasons why it's a best practice to get your candidates into their NHA accounts as soon as possible. We begin to send them welcome emails, information on preparing for their exams. Here are just some of the hundreds of comments from that survey that focused on uncertainty, not just around general anxiety, but also not knowing if they're prepared. Have they learned all the things they need? Even concern about making it through a timed exam. Providing those exam test plans, as well as NHA's resources or learning tools, have statistically shown to make a positive impact. So again, this Get Started area, it will rotate resources throughout the calendar year to provide you access to quick links around those first steps and frequently asked questions, as well as resources on testing or implementing NHA's materials. Scrolling down on this center area will show you some of the most used how-to resources that walk you through the administrative steps you would need to manage this account. And even there's an option for a library of all of our helpful walkthroughs, how-to PDFs, and videos. This is where you can find important documents, implementation resources, and scrolling down will take you to video tutorials and PDFs. Selecting this first link here will actually take you to some additional tools around implementation. So all of our study content has supplemental resources that can be found here. Select the certification type, for example, that you want, and you'll be taken down the screen to view any of those additional documents to assist you with this process, starting with the implementation guide. These guides available to you will outline the content, implementation suggestions, and even the average time it should take for a candidate to navigate through these study materials. Here is just a snapshot from 4 of our 8 certifications and the time it can take an average candidate to work through just the study tutorial portion, which you can see can range widely. These guides are available for any of NHA's learning tools. So again, this library of resources has additional features as well. Scrolling down the page will take you to video guides, downloadable PDFs that help you with the mechanics of the website, including setting up learning content, providing access to candidates, opening exam dates, viewing reporting, monitoring applications. Further down the page will also show you the candidate facing resources tagged into their accounts. You can then help prompt them to use these materials, see what it looks like from their perspective. It gives you those additional resources to ensure that everything is going smoothly throughout the process. Now, the NHA exam online study materials are based on the NHA test plan for that certification. These include an interactive study guide, as well as a series of practice tests, all designed to look and feel just like the exam. This package also provides the NHA focused review, which is a personalized study feature for each candidate to help them as they navigate through their practice assessments. These should be assigned digitally to each candidate so they can move through the materials on their own, as well as provide adequate reporting for group or individual growth. That focused review, as I mentioned, is a secondary tool, separate from the study guide and specific to each practice test attempt to help candidates focus further on the areas that they may still be struggling in. These learning tools are available for preparing for any of the NHA exams. Now, we're going to take just a brief look at some of the other materials also available from NHA, starting with some core learning. So, NHA has content focused on anatomy and physiology, as well as medical terminology. Now, these address just the right amount of content for learners in entry level roles through interactive and engaging online materials. NHA also has a full pharmacy technician suite that starts with inherent learning on becoming a pharmacy technician using the Pharmaceer. This is designed to meet the ASHP didactic standards for learning in this critical role. We also have primary learning tools on medical math, dosage, and calculations using the Pharmaceer math. There are skills developers for medical assistants as well, which include the MA Skills Builder Clinical. This provides an interactive learning experience across 12 engaging modules to help develop and execute 39 clinical competencies employers are needing in an entry level medical assistant. Coming soon is also an administrative skills developer. We just had a webinar earlier today actually about this, which should be posting out in our resources, the recording soon. This tool will be applicable for both administrative staff as well as medical assistants. The admin uses an experiential training tool to focus on key skills and competencies so learners really master the technical and job ready knowledge to handle both front and back office administrative responsibilities. A few more skills developers or even using as career laddering options include providing upskilling and professionalism, starting with personability. This is available in both a clinic or pharmacy setting and uses online simulations and role play to develop abilities in teamwork, emotional intelligence, and communication. You can actually ladder further by leveraging principles of health coaching, another immersive learning tool with realistic scenarios to continue learning and communication, but also focusing on population health management and motivational interviewing. Now, if you are in a patient centered care environment, any member of the care team could also use team based care to deepen their understanding of what this means, how to work in this quality versus quantity environment. Now, for all of those core learning resources, NHA will also provide implementation toolkits. These can include downloadable and editable PowerPoint presentations aligned to the core learning, optional lesson plans outlining the content and suggestions for implementation, additional testing banks and resources, activities to help scrub and polish the learning, walkthrough videos unique to that particular product content, and mapping resources to accreditations, textbooks, and test plans. In fact, we also have mapping resources for the exam preparation as well, found near the implementation guide we already saw. These are called alignment guides. These are unique to each certification type and include an outline of the full test plan, identifying how many scored questions there will be in each exam domain. These will also map out where in the NHA study guide that content is covered, and if there are any additional resources within the learning to help with this process, including games or videos. It's a wonderful tool to use to align candidate learning, as well as review any program content and ensure that there aren't any large gaps in the material. There will also be a few open columns as well, so you can plug in where in a book or a week or a program you are covering that core content. So NHA has been working on full program maps that you could use to implement any or all of these products and help with the learner journey from start to finish. This is just one example of what it could look like for a potential medical assistant program, leveraging each one of those items that addresses those skills or needs. Now, I know that was a lot of information. So I saw there were a couple of things in the Q&A. Do we have any active questions right now, team, that we want to address before we move into the actual website walkthrough? We're good? Okay.
Well, before you go, Laura, just
Yeah.
1 second. We did have a question asking if the CCMA program was accredited by KHEP and ABHES, and you did go over ABHES. Can you just explain where that programming lies and that we're accredited through the NCCA in accordance with these programs?
Yeah, that's a great piece. So when we get into the live walkthrough, one of the things we'll do is take a look at where you can locate the accreditation information, because that is something we should definitely chat to. So we'll make sure that I've got that on my checklist to talk about accreditation versus certification accreditation. There's a lot of things that can be accredited. So we'll definitely take a look at that when we get to the live walkthrough. Thanks, Mary. Is there anything else we want to make sure we cover when we get there?
No, I believe that's it.
All right, perfect. So
Thank you.
yeah, okay, well, let's go ahead and dive in to the actual access of the material. So now keep in mind that at the end of today, again, we're going to be posting a survey link for you to tell us a little bit more about yourself. And if you do want anyone to follow up with you in regards to any of those learning resources, that survey link is going to be the best way to do it. And filling that out prior to October 15th will put you into a raffle to win a $500 gift card. So win-win, right? No harm, no foul. So let's take a look again at the dashboard a little bit further. So we've looked here in the center. These were your resources, the test plans, the guides, the walkthroughs. But the other portion of the website is on the left-hand side. This is your navigation bar. This is where you can find your administrative shortcuts, from viewing inventory, creating courses. You can pull reports for your program as well as materials. Monitor your candidate applications or exam results, depending on your role, adding or removing additional administrative users, and even viewing your exam calendar, possibly creating test dates, or depending on your role, again, proctoring the exam. So right from here is where you can get your learners started with creating their personal logins. You can invite them to set up these logins well before providing them any learning resources through the account invitation feature from this home screen. This does help to ensure everything's ready to go when it's time to start studying. I mentioned earlier, it's a best practice to get them started soon. And we also see that they really do value having that. Those that do get started earlier statistically are more likely not only to take their certification test, but pass that test in that first attempt. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and get into a live walkthrough where we're going to go over a couple different things. I want to make sure that I didn't get kicked out here. Oh, I did. Okay, so let's try that again. I'm going to get into a live walkthrough of the website. So I'm just going to pull that up real quick. Here it comes. Great. So this is a real website, all right, just not yours. But once you log in as an administrative user, this is what it will look like for you. And I mentioned we've got all of these helpful resources in the center. You can explore our how-tos, access our how-to library, and then there's FAQs, webinars. Click on everything. I promise you, you can't break the website. Okay, so take your time, explore those areas. But what I'm going to do is actually take you over here where we're going to get into some information. And we're going to start out on the NHA website to answer that question about accreditation. So over here in the About NHA, you're actually going to see we have an entire landing page just around what accreditation means. So NHA, as a certification provider, has accredited certifications that are approved through the NCCA. That's the National Commission for Certifying Agencies. This is done through a program called ICE. I'm trying to think of what that stands for. Mary, if you know what the ICE stands for, I can't remember off the top of my head. But this is how our certifications are accredited. So that's different than academic or programmatic accreditation. Institutions through a college program can be accredited as an institution, but also programs can be accredited. And that's where we want to talk a little bit about what we were saying with MAERB, KHEP, ABHES. These are program accreditations. So NHA certifications are accredited, but to answer that question, I hope, the NHA certification for medical assisting is recognized as an approved certification for MAERB, KHEP, ABHES accredited programs. So it's a slightly different thing. Mary, did that kind of address the question, do you feel?
I believe it has. Thank you, Laura.
Perfect. Okay, great. So you can see out on our website, we've got lots and lots of resources for you to download, to access. You can explore more about those accreditations. We have blog posts out there. So that's just getting you kind of set up with that general question. The next thing we're going to take a look at here is the Help Center. So our Help Center is where you can go. You can also access it directly from our website as well. And this is where if you need your password reset or address any FAQs, contact our customer service team directly. Our client care team is also available here via live chat to answer questions directly or if there's urgent needs. Additional forms such as accommodation requests or incident forms should there be an issue during an exam, as well as technical requirements to run these programs as far as what is my operating system or most updated browser that's supported. So this is where you have all of those additional resources in the Help Center. And you have direct access to that right here from your login screen. So now we're going to kind of walk through what that journey is like. So a lot of you mentioned that you kind of wanted to see it all, right? I'm kind of starting from scratch. I want to see everything. So that's going to take us here into the prep materials category. And the first thing I'm going to do as an institution user is double check that the inventory, thank you, Mary, Institution for Credentialing Excellence. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm checking my inventory. This is considered anything that the institution has already purchased to then provide to a learner. I'm going to stretch this out so we can see everything that I have access to. And you can see each one of our certification types are listed here along with the potential resources that are provided to study towards those certifications. We have the Pharmaceer, as I mentioned earlier, Pharmaceer Math, and then our additional learning tools. So this is where I can see, for example, that I have a total of 10 resources or 10 students. If you want to think about it, I could provide MedTerm. I could provide 10 students A&P, but only 8 would I be able to give the MA Skills Builder Clinical. So if I'm looking at putting out a program for the year and I know everybody needs all 3, this is when I would stop, contact my NHA representative and say, hey, I'm going to need a couple more of my skills builder to get started. Now, again, if you don't know who your rep is, that survey is going to be the best way to get them connected with you right away. So if I know maybe I only have 8, I'm good to go. I'll have those other 2 in my inventory until I run my next cohort. They have an 18-month shelf life from purchase, so I don't have to worry about using it all right away. So I'm checking my inventory under prep materials and inventory. I want to see what I have. If I don't have enough, if I invite a learner, add a learner to a course, which is what we're going to look at next, and I don't have the inventory, well, guess what? They're not going to get anything. So we just want to double check this first to make it really easy and clear for everybody. Now we're going to go into my courses. This is where I go next to get everything established. So I currently do have several courses active and open. You can see I've got certifications for all of those materials. And now what I'm going to do is go and show you how they got here. So I'm going to click here under this new course feature when it's time to create a new course. I give it a course name. This name can only be used independently a single time. So it would be best to give it something that's catalogable, right? MA Study 2022, whatever that might be. Start date and end date are optional. Though they do give a nice visual aid to completion timelines, know that the end date is not going to revoke access from anyone added to that course. It simply gives that expectation of completion. So it's okay if they have to access it past the end date. That's when you then turn on the materials that you need. So depending on the certification type or additional materials you might be adding, it changes a little bit of what those settings might be. So you do have some ability to kind of set some delays in between practice test attempts, set some boundaries for when you want things to gain access, build out that course. Just know anything you put here in this one course, any learner that you enroll in it is going to be given all of it. So if you know that I'm doing this in stages and I don't want to give them everything yet, don't put everything in that course. If you know everyone's going to get it all right away and we're going to use it really creatively and access everything as we go through, great, build it out. When you're done, you create the course, and that's how they get into your courses lineup. Now, at the end of a term, when you're no longer needing that material, you will access through this course details feature. You're going to be able to go in and archive the course. Archiving a course doesn't hurt anybody. Anyone who's enrolled in that course still has that course content. It just moves it out of activity. Doing this is going to mean that I don't have to worry about it. I'm not looking at it anymore. But if I wanted to, I could. It's still available here in my archived courses feature. I'd be able to go in and see who was on my roster, pull reporting, access content as needed. So building courses, archiving courses. Now let's talk about course enrollment. You can see here I've got my course roster. So depending on if you've already invited your learners to set up their account or not, there's a couple different options here. I've got 3 learners currently in this course, but how did they get here? Well, for some, it makes the most sense to have them create their candidate accounts, or if they already have an account, they can go into their learner's account using one of those how-to documents and request enrollment. Requesting doesn't give it to them. You would have to approve that course enrollment to be transfer that inventory from your inventory into that candidate's account. Alternatively, you can invite those learners through this invitation feature. It's a pretty simple way, but you do need to know their email addresses in order to do this. So sometimes it's not always going to be the best. So you don't want to own that process. You check their addresses, and this is how you can send them an invitation. If it's an existing candidate account, a new candidate account, if they're already enrolled in the course, we won't let you do it again. And also if you spelled it wrong, an invalid email address. Pretty simple process, though we do have how-tos for all of those built into the material. So building courses, archiving courses, enrolling learners is a pretty easy process. And again, we have how-tos that walk you through the whole thing. So now they go through their course, they do their learning, and we've got some other webinars that we host specific to those pieces. But the next step in the next kind of major milestone is going to be the exam itself. So how does that work? Well, that's going to happen down here where we see the exams. What I want to do first is make sure that no one else in my program has already opened an exam date. So I'm going to double check and kind of make sure by clicking on my calendar, my upcoming exams. This calendar will default to a 30-day window. That's our best practice minimum time before an on-site exam that we would recommend you open that test for registration. It can be opened after that point, but that's kind of when we would suggest it happen. You can stretch this out for a 90-day window, and in this scenario, it doesn't really affect anything. So I know my test is coming up in November, which means I can go ahead and create my test date. So I'm going to go over to Request New Exam. So now I just need to put in my test date. So I'm going to select my date for November. This is the week of Thanksgiving. So I'm going to do Friday before. My application deadline needs to occur the week before the exam. Technically, this deadline is the last day that a learner can apply for the test. So it's really 8 days before your actual exam date because it closes overnight into 1 week before the test. So that's the date I'm going to select. Exam time is an open alpha numeric field. You can put anything in there. This field will be visible to the learners during their application process. So for example, if it's happening at a certain time or at a certain location, if I have multiple tests running on the same day or at different clinics, depending on my scenario, I want to label that so that the learners know which one to apply to. If I use purchase order numbers to pay for exams directly based off of exam rosters, which is all about how your program is set up. If you have questions on that, that should go back to your primary NHA contact. You can put a purchase order number in here. Doing so will tie that PO directly to that finalized roster and invoice. The number of available computers is based off of the maximum headcount that your testing space can accommodate and stay in compliance with the testing requirements. So if you only have 10 computers in your testing space, don't put 15 here. If you have 15 learners and 10 computers, well, now you know you're going to have to open 2 different test times. So it just gives you that visibility to when those things are. I'm going to go ahead and open up my exam type and then request my exam date. Now this tells me, congratulations, that's been done. But if you want to confirm it, go on back to that calendar. I'm going to go back to my upcoming exams, stretch out my window, and sure enough, there's my exam date waiting for me. Now there's some important things you can see from here as well. You can see the exam type, what exams I'm running at any given time. I'm going to close that. The status of the test, open for registration. That week before the test or after that application deadline, that will transition to a closed status. At that point, anyone with instructor access to the account will be sent an email to say, hey, you've got a roster to go and approve. Please do that. 3 business days before the exam, NHA will automatically finalize this status, and it will be put into what's called a sent status. Once it's in sent status, the exam has been finalized. It's been sent on. We can no longer edit or change it. So prior to that, we still have some flexibility. Just be aware that that will happen automatically 3 business days before the test. I can see here also what those dates are and any applications. So I should be monitoring these applications well before my registration deadline. I want to know who's on it, who needs to be on it. They need to have applied prior to that date. So if I want to go in and check it, how do I do that? Well, right over here, we have a view exam applications. This is where you can actively monitor any exam applications, starting up here with third party or off site. So anyone leveraging a third party testing agency through NHA, that's going to be PSI for testing, you'll monitor those applications here. You'll be able to see statuses, dates scheduled. If they missed the exam, it will all be listed here. But here is my student, Marcia. She's already applied for the October deadline. She's in pending status since it's still open for registration. And I need to go get my other couple of students in gear so they can get onto that roster in time. I can download these as an Excel spreadsheet or PDF if I need to for further filtering, monitoring, or documentation purposes. So that's upcoming exams, requesting an exam, and monitoring my applications. Now, once the exams are done, you'll be able to view their results right here. This happens in a cadence, just depending on what type of testing you're doing, but it should occur within 3 business days of the test itself. If you have to approve an exam roster, you do so right here. And that happens again after registration closes. You can open up the exam roster. We don't have any open right now, so there's nothing to view. But this is where you can go in and view them, approve or reject as needed. So as you can see, you have complete control over all of these steps. And depending on your status, your access to the material, you're either proctoring or not, we got lots of different resources to help you with this process. All right, live walkthrough of the website. Now, the one thing we haven't really touched yet is reporting. We do hold additional webinars, some focusing just on reporting. So for now, just know that the moment a learner accesses any study materials, no matter what the content may be, reports begin to load. So these reports vary depending on the resource, but they include filterable tools, downloadable PDFs, deep analytics to provide clarity in learners and processes. Our Learning Insight Center, which is available right from your home screen. Let me just pop that back over here. The Learning Insight Center is right here, and that's where you can access the bulk of our reporting. That's where we can highlight, among other things, progress through modules, performance and assessments, time spent in study. Again, today's session is not really about that content, but we do hold others, so keep an eye out on our upcoming events page to register for future webinars. Now, before we get into some open Q&A, I wanted to reiterate that we've been recording. So anyone who registered for today will receive that recording. And if we haven't addressed your question in Q&A at the end, I'm sure we'll reach out directly to you. Just remember that we're going to be posting some survey links in the chat box here coming up. So those surveys are going to put you into some options for gift cards, but that's also going to be the best way for you to communicate or request a follow-up from your direct NHA representative or even individual training. So some of the other resources that you have available to you, there it is, Lauren. Thank you guys. So the 2 surveys, go ahead and just open those up now so we can fill them in, but I've got a couple more things I want to cover. We talked a little bit about those how-to resources right for you from your home screen. We want you to be able to address your questions when they happen. But please know these are your first line of defense for you as well as students on what to do, where to go. There's lots of great stuff in there to use. So please feel free to leverage it, share it with your students. If you cannot find your answer, again, our client care team is available through live chat or that help center phone line. And though extended hours are open, they are not a 24-hour service. So that means though that you do have students who don't have to wait all through a weekend to get an answer to a question, right? They are open Saturday mornings and in the evenings and mornings. So please use them as that kind of second line of defense. And then, of course, you have your individual NHA contact. Now, again, if you don't know who they are, please put that in that survey link. We'll make sure that they can connect with you. But they're here to make sure that you have everything you need for your program, inventory, orders. If you do need additional training with the NHA Client Experience team, which I'm proud to be a part of, they're the ones who would initiate that with us so that we could get that scheduled with you. So thank you all so much. That was kind of the bulk of the material, but we have plenty of time for open Q&A and questions. But I wanted to thank you for all of your hard work. You guys really are heroes. You're on the front lines every day doing the really hard stuff. So thank you so much for being here, taking some time out on your afternoon and listening to me kind of yap at you here. But we do want to make sure that we get some questions answered. So let's see, it looks like there was one just posted about purchasing materials. Yes, from when you purchase your study materials, the question is, how long will they stay in my inventory, essentially? So that inventory feature is designed to host that material for up to an 18-month window. Now, once you give it to a learner, that starts a brand new timestamp for that individual. So it's not 18 months total. It's 18 months on the shelf. After that point, it might not even be the most updated information anymore. So we want to make sure that you have that. But 18 months in your inventory, once you provide that to your students or learners, that starts a whole new timestamp depending on the material, either 18 months or 2 years access from there. So great question. What other questions have come up, team? I just saw that one right in the chat box, so I want to make sure to answer it right away.
Okay, other than the one that we talked about with CAPAS and APAS, we want to make sure when you were discussing creating a course and having enough computers available, just to make sure that they know that a proctor can only proctor 25 students and they must be present in that room with them when they are proctoring them.
Oh, yeah, correct. So if you have questions on proctoring and proctoring eligibility, what it means to proctor, what I'm going to do is actually take you here into our how-to space. Remember, we looked at this right at the beginning. And we kind of focused primarily on this first section, preparing and registering candidates. These are how-tos for you, for your learners, etc. But guess what? We have a whole section just around proctoring. So the Proctor Handbook is where you can go to address kind of what those pieces are for not only eligibility to proctor, but what those minimum requirements need to be as far as the proctor to candidate ratio, what needs to be included in the testing space, how should or shouldn't it work, right? So when we're talking about conflict of interest or even remote versus in-person testing, remote testing is not something you do personally or your proctor does. That can only be proctored through a third-party testing agency, and we can help you with that. But as far as on-site testing that you schedule and you set up the proctors for, that has to be live, in person, meeting the testing space standards and requirements based out of this proctor handbook and our proctor manual. So did that cover that for you, Mary?
Yes, yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. What other questions have come up? Is there anything else that we can answer? Repeat the role of NHA in reference to KHEP and ABHES. Okay, so NHA, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit about this. I'll go back out to our main website. All right. So there's different kinds of accreditation. I wonder if I have an extra slide about this. Let's see here. Okay. So NHA and the NHA certification exams are accredited through the Institute for Credentialing Excellence that works with the National Commission for Certifying Agencies, or NCCA, and the ICE. So that means that the certifications themselves, earning that certification, is a nationally recognized and accredited certification. Now, that is an accreditation towards that certification. Now, what we're talking about with MAERB, KHEP, ABHES, these are program accrediting bodies. So these programs accredit academic programs, right? So you can have a medical assisting program that is accredited through MAERB. Well, NHA is an approved certification for all of these accredited requirements. So if you have a program that's accredited, NHA certification is an approved certification to use in that scenario. Okay, so it's a slightly different thing. We actually also, just for clarity, NHA is is a sponsoring organization of MAERB and KHEP, which means we actually help to establish what the industry standards should be. So all of that is actually available. Again, you can kind of access that through our accreditation information. So did that help there, Ms. Laprelle? Is that answer? Okay, says thank you. Perfect. Slightly different. I know there's lots of different types of accreditations out there: program, scholastic, credentialed, right? But NHA are accredited certifications that are approved for accredited academic programs. Hopefully that helps. What other questions have we had? These have been great questions, you guys.
That about wraps it up.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see. Looks like, did one just post in the chat there?
Yes, one
Okay.
just came in.
Okay, let's see. I was a proctor for the first time this week. Ooh, and the candidates were taking the test wanted to know what the range for passing is. Oh, that's a whole nother layer of information, but we can help. We can help with this. So what I'm going to do is go back out to talk about the NHA test plans. This is a kind of a different sort of a process. I wonder if I have any slides on this here. I'm going to see. I don't think I have any on this deck. Okay, so we are going to go to the NHA website and select a certification. So I'm going to pick any one of our NHA certifications. And as I scroll down, I'm going to see information around that credential, resources, etc. And then at the bottom, I can download the free test plan. The test plans are available for all of our certifications. So this is specific, the current test plan for the MA, Medical Assisting Test Plan. And I'm going to answer your question, Dawn, so stick with me here. But the current NHA exam has 150 scored questions and 30 non-scored. Pretest is an analytics term that means non-scored. We use these 30 questions for this test. It's not 30 for every test, but for this exam as a scenario, to gauge the life cycle of that test, to kind of test out new questions and use it for data and analytics. So 150 scored questions for this exam and 30 non-scored. For just for reference, your learners will not know which are which. They're not the first 30, they're popcorn throughout. So we want to encourage them to answer all questions to the best of their ability, right? But there's 150 scored questions. Every learner will follow this test blueprint. Now for this one, we actually have this little handy dandy one-page summary, which I'm going to go to. This breaks down a little bit further how those range out. So every learner currently who sits for the CCMA exam will have 15 questions in the first domain, which cover these 5 categories, 12 in A&P, 81 in clinical patient care. Take note, though, that administrative assisting is the second single largest portion of the test. It's a really important element. But the point is, every learner will follow this blueprint, but not every learner will have the same questions in their test. So this is where things get a little sticky. How do we make sure that we score each learner fairly across a potential variety of questions they may get? NHA has taken all of the questions that we may ask a candidate and evaluated them through a really intense process. Actually, I think I do have a slide here for this. Here we go. So we're looking at the test plan, we're looking at those different items, but we take some layers with our psychometrician team that start with how hard is that question? Even how often in your role might you be asked to do this thing? How important is it you get it right the first time? Right? These are just different layers that we take to weigh the potential questions. Now, these are just some of those pieces, but that weighting is put into a value. Each test version will have the same possible, I'm getting to your answer now, Dawn, same possible maximum score, which is 500 points. Now, this is medical assisting, phlebotomy, billing and coding, it doesn't matter. Every test has a potential to earn 500 points based off of the weight of those different questions. So 500 would be perfect. Every tester has the same potential across the same blueprint, but different questions. So a minimum passing score is 390 or higher. And I want to be really clear, that doesn't mean it's an 80%. This is a weighted score, not a raw score. So take that into account. If I got a 389, that doesn't mean I missed one question, right? It just means after all the questions were evaluated, I didn't quite make the minimum cut score. So it's not a really, really simple answer, unfortunately, but a 424, Dawn, just for reference, is an excellent score, right? Very strong, well above minimum cut, very close to that kind of top level. I would tell your student to be very proud of that score. But so it's not a perfect way to say, hey, well, if you get at least a 70%, you'll be fine, because it's not always the same. So 500 is perfect, 390 is passing, and it's all through a weighted evaluated process. So Dawn, do you feel better about that? I feel like you can say that, you can answer that back to your students now, hopefully.
She's
Yes.
saying yes, that's, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. I know it's kind of heady. It's a heady topic. I totally get it, but that's kind of the best way to describe it to
Yeah.
a learner is that we want you to be scored fairly across a variety of possible questions. If you get harder questions than your neighbor, we want to make sure that that's recognized, right? So it's just about making sure everyone gets a fair trial, essentially. Okay, I feel like we've kind of run up on the edge of our question sets for today. I want to thank everybody for being here with us. You will be receiving a recording. Lauren, can you go ahead and repost those survey links in there so everybody can fill them out? Please fill those out. Especially that one for $500, because we here at NHA aren't allowed to fill it out. I would love to be put into a raffle for $500. So please fill that out on our behalf, right? At least. But anyway, thank you all so much for being here. It's been wonderful to have you. We're very, very excited to have you here at all. So have a wonderful day, everybody, and a great afternoon.